freedom of expression in law, and to this day, Labour is committed to freedom of speech and academic freedom. That's why we're pressing ahead with a robust, rigorous and workable Freedom of Speech Act. We are taking common sense decisions in the national interest.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, there's a minority of teachers who subscribe to the sort of dog whistle, divisive politics sometimes seen from the opposition benches, and the benches down here, by the way. This has led to some children in Ashfield being put off from speaking, expressing their own opinions during sensible debate in school time. So does the Secretary of State agree with me that whilst in the classroom, teachers should remain politically neutral?
Mr. Speaker, I've had the privilege of visiting hundreds of schools across our country, and I tell you, children are usually never backwards in coming forwards with their opinions in the schools that I visited, and I would hope that is the case in his constituency too. Of course, schools have a duty to promote issues such as fundamental British values, and schools are also subject to long-standing legal duties which do prohibit them from promoting partisan political views.
Laura Cox.
14, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I'd like to take 14 and questions 20 together. This government has a mission to break down barriers to opportunity. We want to rebalance opportunities towards young people, have the most to gain from apprenticeships, and where starts have fallen by almost 40%, we are introducing foundation apprenticeships to give more young people a foot in the door at the start of their working life.
Laura Kirk-Smith.
Mr. Speaker, we're fortunate to have some great apprenticeship providers in Aylesbury like Bucks College Group and Bucks New University. When I joined pupils from the Grange School at their careers fair, I saw firsthand their excitement about the apprenticeship options on offer. We know that apprenticeships are win-win for young people and for sectors facing recruitment challenges like health and social care and construction. What steps is the Minister taking to expand and strengthen apprenticeships and to ensure that all young people who choose to go down that route are able to do so?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for her question. She is a real champion for students at Buckinghamshire College and indeed for young people across Aylesbury. I know the area represented by my honourable friend very well. After the Conservatives left us with a collapsing apprenticeship system as well as other skill shortages, Labour is listening to employers and redrawing the system through Skills England, a new growth and skills levy and a new foundation apprenticeships. This is how we unlock opportunity and drive growth.
In room.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Back in the autumn, the new government announced plans to reduce the financial support available for Level 7 apprenticeships. Does the Secretary of State understand that curtailing higher level apprenticeships make it harder to access graduate level skills and qualifications in rural areas like North Devon, where there are no universities nearby?
Minister.
This government has an extremely challenging fiscal inheritance. There are tough choices that need to be taken on how funding should be prioritised in order to generate opportunities for all. Employers will still be able to offer and invest in Level 7 apprenticeships where they feel they provide a good return on the investment. We are taking advice from Skills England, who engage with employers on funding for Level 7 apprenticeships over the autumn, and the Department expects to make a final decision on affected apprenticeships shortly.
Shadow Minister Neil O'Brien.
Mr. Speaker, the government has said in answer to written questions that it has a forecast for the number of apprenticeships, but it won't publish it for members of this House to see, which is a shame. At the last oral questions, the Secretary of State said it was still the government's policy to allow employers to spend 50% of their apprenticeship levy money on other things. Isn't the reason that the government won't publish its forecast for the number of apprenticeships because their own policy will lead to a sharp reduction in the number of people starting apprenticeships?
No. Minister.
We are very confident with what this government is doing with apprenticeships. Our levy-funded growth and skills offer with apprenticeships at the heart will deliver greater flexibility for learners and employees in England, aligned with our industrial strategy, creating routes into good, skilled jobs in growing industries. As a first step, this will include shorter duration and foundation apprenticeships in targeted sectors.
Marcia Ricardo.
Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you. High quality teaching.
The Minister, is he due to come in on this or not? No. OK, Karen.
High-quality teaching is the most important in-school factor for improving outcomes for all children, including those with disabilities. That's why we're committed to delivering our first step of recruiting 6,500 new teachers to drive up high and rising standards in our schools, both in mainstream and in specialist settings. And we're doing that by bolstering paying conditions and restoring teaching as a respected expert profession.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Research in June 2023 found that only 56% of teachers in mainstream schools felt confident about supporting children with a special education need or disability. Today, that means that many children are still missing out on learning and leaving school without the skills that they need, including in my constituency of Battersea. So does the Minister agree with me that we need more specialist teachers, including those for multisensory purposes and teachers for children with visual impairments, to ensure that every child has the opportunity to fulfil their potential?
Minister.
I thank the Honourable Lady for that question. All teachers are teachers of special educational needs and disabilities. High-quality teaching is absolutely central to ensuring pupils with SEND are given the best possible opportunities to achieve in their education. And to support all teachers, we are implementing high-quality teacher training reforms, which begins with initial teacher training, continues through early career training to middle and senior leadership, and these changes and reforms will ensure that teachers have the skills to support all pupils to succeed, including those with SEND.
Good job.
Thank you. On Friday, I had the opportunity to visit Manor Special School, where 60 members of staff look after the 92 pupils there, many of whom have the most severe learning disabilities and autism. I was absolutely blown away by the staff care there, and I was particularly grateful to be shown round by Lucia, who was an adorable one of the pupils there. Will the Minister join with me in thanking all of our special school teachers for the amazing commitment that they show? And on Manamead's behalf, can I invite the Minister to visit and see that work firsthand?
Minister.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question and for celebrating the work that the teachers, particularly in our special schools, but also teachers throughout our school system, the work that they do tirelessly day in, day out to support pupils to succeed, but particularly those with special educational needs and disabilities. I'll certainly take away his very kind invitation.
Richard Hull.
Question number 16, please, Mr. Speaker.
As a government, we've had to take tough decisions to get public finances back on track. In 2025-26, the entitlements budget will be over £8 billion, with a further £75 million to support the sector in this pivotal expansion year. We have also announced the largest ever uplift to the early years pupil premium. Early years is central to our mission to give every child the best start in life.
Richard Holden.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker. Now, early year providers are being absolutely hammered, with many of them seeing their costs per member of staff almost doubling in terms of national insurance. Many of these are small businesses in the private sector, and also actually some of them are schools providing it for young people in those before they come into reception classes. They are all worried, whether it's primary schools in the state sector or small private providers, about the extra costs being imposed on them. So can the Minister assure my constituents and people up and down the country that families will not be seeing higher costs of early years provision, that those childcare places will still be there, and will the Minister assure this House that at the end of this Parliament there will be more childcare places than at the start of it?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the party opposite, we are on the side of working parents, and education, high-quality education, will be available for every child. And, Mr. Speaker, on the substantive point, it would help if the party opposite were honest. This party opposite wouldn't reverse their eyes.
And the Minister Neil O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The decision not to compensate nurseries for the national insurance increase has pushed providers to the brink, according to the Early Years Alliance. And many in schools are worried that they'll be next, including schools with nurseries. Now, local councils had a bill of £1.8 billion for national insurance increase, but they got compensation of less than a third of that because the indirect costs were not covered. So can the Minister assure the House that when it comes to schools, compensation for the national insurance increase will cover all of the costs to schools, not just the direct costs?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, the Government announced that public sector employers will receive compensation for the increase in their NICS contributions, including school-based nurseries and maintained nursery schools, but in line with